We have new information this morning about the FBI raid at a horse racing facility in southern Idaho.
In the quiet farming town of Wilder, Idaho, where horse arenas and open fields usually symbolize small-town life and community gatherings, federal agents uncovered something far more sinister. What seemed like a family-friendly racing venue was in fact the heart of one of Idaho's largest underground gambling and money laundering operations. Over the weekend, dozens of arrests were made after a massive pre-dawn FBI raid at the La Catadil Horse Arena, a sprawling property in Canyon County. The takedown marked the first major federal gambling bust under the joint FBI-DHS enforcement framework, and it revealed how organized crime networks had quietly infiltrated the state's rural heartland. The operation that shocked Idaho. At sunrise, nearly 200 agents from the FBI ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, Idaho State Police, and the Treasure Valley Metro Violent Crime and Gang Task Force moved in. For months, investigators had watched the property, documenting cash transactions, unregistered betting, and links to transnational drug cartels. Sunday's raid wasn't a random strike. It was the culmination of an intricate investigation that tied local horse races to international money flows. What looked like weekend entertainment had actually become a multi-state gambling empire. Families and spectators would arrive to watch informal races, unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, that thousands of dollars were being wagered illegally on every event. Beneath the bleachers and around the stables, cash handoffs were happening constantly. For law enforcement, the mission was not only to stop the gambling, but to expose the deeper web of crimes it concealed: drug trafficking, weapons sales, and money laundering stretching far beyond Idaho's borders. How investigators uncovered the scheme. According to the FBI, the operation began taking shape months ago when agents noticed unusual cash transfers flowing through small feed stores in Oregon and Idaho. These transactions, often made under fake names, led to one address: the La Catadil Arena. Surveillance soon revealed that the arena was hosting events much larger than any local permit allowed. Investigators sent undercover agents posing as bettors to multiple race days. What they found confirmed their suspicions: unlicensed betting tables, coded ledgers, and known cartel associates exchanging envelopes near the stables. The Department of Homeland Security later traced the arena's cash flow and discovered that profits were being funneled into legitimate local businesses, feed suppliers, trucking companies, and small construction firms, before being routed south toward criminal networks operating along the US-Mexico border. The arena had become a near-perfect front for organized crime, cash-heavy, community-based, and seemingly innocent. The Dawn Raid. At exactly 9 a.m. Sunday morning, with one of the weekend races already underway, federal tactical teams surrounded the arena. The operation was timed for peak activity to ensure the maximum collection of evidence and to minimize risk to civilians. Spectators, more than 400 of them, were cheering as the horses took off down the dirt track. Moments later, helicopters hovered overhead and law enforcement sealed every exit. Within minutes, the cheering stopped. Witnesses later described scenes of confusion and panic as uniformed officers moved through the bleachers, announcing that the property was under federal investigation. Agents ordered everyone to remain seated while they conducted a full sweep of the grounds. By the time the sun rose over Canyon County, the La Catadil Arena was completely under federal control. What they found. Inside the arena's offices and trailers, agents discovered cash boxes holding more than $180,000, dozens of betting slips, and ledgers filled with coded transactions. Many entries appeared to match narcotics prices and quantities. Several weapons were also recovered, including a handgun registered to a known cartel intermediary from Arizona. Federal prosecutors in Boise later charged 5 key suspects with operating an illegal gambling and money laundering enterprise: Ivan Tellis, 37, of Wilder; Samuel Bezzerano, 37, and Diana Ferrardo, 39, of Nisa, Oregon; and Alejandro Estrada, 56, of Boole, Idaho. A 5th suspect was arrested the following day. 2 defendants were legal U.S. residents, while the others were undocumented nationals with prior criminal histories. Each now faces federal felony charges, including illegal gambling, conspiracy, and money laundering, offenses that could lead to up to 20 years in prison. ICE and Homeland Security's role. While the FBI focused on criminal charges, ICE and Homeland Security handled immigration screenings for the 400-plus attendees. Of those detained, 105 undocumented nationals were placed into federal custody. According to officials, these individuals were not random civilians but employees and contractors tied to the racing circuit, many working as horse handlers, grooms, or betting runners. They were paid in cash, moved between races in unmarked vans, and had little knowledge of who actually controlled the operation. All detainees were transported to temporary processing centers in Utah, Rigby, and Burley for medical evaluation and fingerprinting. Homeland Security emphasized that the operation was conducted under strict federal guidelines with oversight from child protection and humanitarian teams. Several of those detained have since acquired legal representation as deportation proceedings begin. Beyond gambling, a criminal web. Investigators say this raid is about far more than betting. The gambling ring was allegedly tied to cross-border money laundering connected to narcotics sales in the Pacific Northwest. Federal analysts believe the La Catadil Arena acted as a financial hub, where proceeds from methamphetamine and fentanyl distribution were laundered through unregistered betting pools. Digital forensics teams recovered over 5 terabytes of electronic evidence, including security camera footage, text messages, and digital accounting logs. This data, now under analysis by the Department of Justice, could form the foundation for future RICO, racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. ACT indictments, targeting not only local organizers but also their financiers abroad. A blueprint for federal cooperation. For law enforcement, the raid was a textbook example of interagency coordination. FBI field offices collaborated closely with Idaho State Police, the Canyon County Sheriff's Office, and federal intelligence units. The Homeland Security Investigations Team described it as one of the cleanest multi-agency takedowns in recent memory, executed without casualties, chaos, or collateral damage. Idaho Governor Brad Little praised the operation as a milestone in the state's fight against organized crime, saying it sent a clear message that Idaho would not be used as a playground for criminal networks. Any operation that exploits both people and animals for profit, his office said, has no place in this state. Community reactions. In the hours following the raid, Wilder's usually peaceful streets filled with onlookers, reporters, and worried relatives seeking news of detained family members. Residents gathered outside the fenced arena, staring at the rows of federal vehicles and the yellow tape sealing off the property. Many said they had long suspected that something wasn't quite right. "There were always big crowds and cash everywhere," said one local business owner. "We thought it was just a local racing hobby. We didn't realize it was part of something so big." Another resident described seeing unmarked vans arriving before dawn and men exchanging envelopes behind the stables. "It was all hidden in plain sight," she said. Community leaders, while shocked, expressed gratitude that authorities had finally intervened. "It's disturbing to know this was happening right under our noses," said one city council member. "But it's also reassuring to see that the system worked." Protecting the animals. Alongside human arrests, animal welfare officers worked quickly to ensure the horses' safety. More than 40 animals were taken to secure holding facilities for veterinary evaluation. Authorities suspect that many had been overworked or underfed to maximize race day performance. The Idaho Department of Agriculture confirmed it is investigating potential animal cruelty violations, and several horses have already been transferred to rehabilitation centers. Political and legal fallout. The aftermath of the La Catadil operation has set off a flurry of legislative discussions in Boise. State lawmakers are now drafting bills to strengthen oversight of private racing venues, requiring mandatory licenses and limiting cash-based betting systems. Governor Little described the case as a wake-up call, adding that organized crime doesn't just hide in big cities, it takes root wherever people stop paying attention. At the federal level, prosecutors are preparing for what could be a long series of trials. Additional indictments are expected as analysts sift through the seized electronic data. The Department of Justice is also examining possible tax evasion and animal cruelty charges, citing irregularities in ownership records and unreported income exceeding $2 million over the past 2 years. The bigger picture. Homeland Security officials have since revealed that the Idaho raid was part of a larger nationwide initiative targeting illegal gambling networks tied to cartel financing. Similar operations are now underway in Oregon, Washington, and California. Analysts say horse racing venues like La Catadil are particularly attractive to organized crime because they are cash-driven, culturally familiar in rural communities, and largely unregulated. The arena was the perfect cover, one DHS investigator explained. It looked legitimate, brought in crowds, and moved massive amounts of cash every weekend. That's exactly how these networks hide their money in plain sight. A community in reflection. For the residents of Wilder, the raid was both shocking and sobering. A town once defined by its agricultural calm suddenly found itself at the center of a national investigation. Local officials have organized town hall meetings to address community concerns and to help those indirectly affected, especially small vendors who unknowingly worked with the arena. Meanwhile, the La Catadil Horse Arena remains closed, guarded by federal agents as evidence processing continues. The once lively venue now stands silent, its grandstands empty, its racetrack deserted. For many locals, it has become a symbol, a reminder of how easily organized crime can seep into everyday life, and how quickly it can be dismantled when the system finally strikes back. Conclusion. The Wilder raid may go down as one of Idaho's most significant law enforcement victories in decades. It exposed how international criminal networks can take root in the most unsuspecting corners of America, and how cooperation between local, state, and federal agencies can uproot them. The FBI, ICE, and DHS all describe the operation as just the beginning, a first strike in a broader offensive against underground gambling and cartel-linked laundering operations nationwide. As the sun sets over Canyon County, the once bustling horse arena now stands as a quiet monument to both corruption and accountability. Beneath the dust of its empty track lies a powerful message that even in small towns, far from the headlines of big cities, the reach of organized crime can be long, but the resolve to fight it can be even longer.